67, 68, 69. Oh, hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel episode review. As you can see, I was just getting a little workout in, getting ready for this very review, actually. Let me go ahead and set this down here. Alright, just gonna set it down right here in front of me, and just, ow, my foot! Ow! Gosh darn it, that hurt. Alright, just set this over here so I don't kick it or something. Man. Whew, well, sorry about that, heroes. Well, where was I? Okay, so last week, the Rangers got their powers back and started their brand new battle with Madame Odious. And Badana as well, actually, though spoilers, she's not actually in this episode. So now it's time to see how the Rangers get back to normal by taking a look at the second episode of Super Ninja Steel, Moment of Truth. We have our brand new Kids Are Too Stupid to Remember Basic Plot Points narration. There's really nothing from it that I considered worth mentioning, except this one shot from it where the Rangers are running up to a monster. Calvin and Preston have their ribbit rifles pulled, but none of the other Rangers do. Just seemed weird. Anyway, we start with what's obviously the most important factor in this entire story. Victor and Monty. They're at a street-side market stall kind of a thing. Victor is trying on sunglasses, trying to find a cool look so he can pick up some chicks. Honestly, he pretty much says this, admits to as much later on in the episode. Nearby, a monster named Deceptron is watching them. He explains to a buzz cam, so basically to the audiences of both Galaxy Warriors and Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel, that his Bolt Blaster is powered by human lies. Okay, time out. I actually can't really decide what is more ridiculous about this premise. He has a weapon that is powered by lies. His weapon is capable of taking deception and transforming that into some kind of physical energy. However, they must be human lies, despite this likely being the first time that this creature has ever been to the planet Earth. And yes, Andros, Earth isn't the only place the humans live. But I highly doubt that this creature has been to either KO-35 or Miranoi either, if those two worlds even exist in whatever universe Ninja Steel exists in. And let's say that he's been to all three. Why would it be limited to human lies? Wouldn't that be incredibly limiting? Anyway, Victor being Victor, he of course picks out the dumbest pair of sunglasses he could have possibly found. They're a weightlifter lifting a set of weights where the weights are actually the lenses on them. And he asks Monty if they look cool. Monty lies and says they do because Victor's happiness is all that he lives and breathes for. That lie travels over to Deceptron and powers up his Bolt Blaster. Victor can't even actually see wearing these sunglasses. Why are they that dark? Because comedy. Coincidentally, Preston and Calvin just happen to be walking down that very same street talking about how they're going to go bowling that night. They meet up with the others and Haley gives Calvin his gift. His gift? Oh, right. Today is their anniversary. And Calvin forgot. Uh-oh. Haley says that she can't believe that they've been together for 2 whole years, and the gift is a vanity plate for his truck, Nitro. Or I suppose it might be for his Nitro Zord, but technically that doesn't exist at the moment. Calvin, not unsurprisingly, decides to play this off with some lies. You know, of course he got her a gift. He's just saving it for their anniversary dinner they're going to have later. The lies go over and power up the Bolt Blaster some more, and Deceptron decides that this is enough power to go ahead and mount an attack. The Rangers go to morph, and in an incredibly intelligent move for a monster as opposed to the norm, he doesn't wait and attacks them right then and there. He fires a bolt at Haley's Power Star, which pierces right through it and makes it unable to fit on her morpher anymore. Haley can't morph. I'm going to warn you folks now that I might sound a little bit more nitpicky than usual in this video, but I'm going to explain why during the pros and cons. The Rangers struck this pose to get ready to morph, like they were going to have their morphers in their hands, but in the 1 second pause between shots, we can see that they're not there. In the next shot, the morphers are just there. There's no flash, there's no visual effect, not even a sound effect, just I had some people last week ask me why I didn't mention the fact that the Rangers morphers just showed up when they got their stars back. I didn't really mind that at the time because when the Rangers first got their power stars, the morphers just kind of showed up like they're tied together. But this just looked really bad, like lazy editing. At least give us a flash or something. Sara demands to know what the monster's done to Haley's power star. Sara, honey, listen. Just because you phrase this as a question or a demand, I suppose, for knowledge, doesn't mean that the show is not explaining to us with words something that we can already see on screen. As a matter of fact, this question just makes you seem incredibly dumb. Now, I will address something that came up in the comments last week. I do understand and appreciate that some fans of Power Rangers are in fact visually impaired. As a matter of fact, if you are a fan of me and follow me and you are visually impaired, that actually takes a bit more effort than the standard fan, and I appreciate that all the more. However, I do think that we can all agree that Power Rangers is a television show created for a visual medium. It can't be all things for all people, and to make myself sound even geekier, I think this is a situation where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Verbally describing all the action we see on screen will satisfy the visually impaired, but it's going to frustrate everybody else because it just slows the episode down and makes the writing feel even more simple and childish. I truly and genuinely hope that I haven't offended anybody by bringing this up and giving this stance, but that's just how I feel about it. So apparently Deceptron gets 1 bolt out of 2 lies. We'll see if he levels up and gets better about that later, as even though he looks really strong anyway, he declares that his bolt blaster is out of energy and he takes off. As the Rangers run back to their base to see if Mick can help with Haley's Power Star, we see that Deceptron went right back to the Galaxy Warriors stage. Cosmo congratulates him for taking 1 Ranger out of the picture, but Odious says he needs to take out all 6 Rangers, not just 1. So, Deceptron, what's your play? His genius plan is that the Yellow Ranger is on a lying streak, so he's going to follow him and get enough power to take out all the Rangers. Of course, he'd have no way of knowing if Calvin was going to talk about his anniversary again, that it was ever going to come up, let alone lie about it again. Maybe one more time when he gave Haley the gift, but that's hardly a lying streak. In fact, it would have made a lot more sense for him to follow Victor and Monty, since Monty is obviously the tiny puppy dog desperate to keep his master Victor happy at all costs, and he must lie to him all the time. Mick can't get the bolt off because of magic. Haley says that if she can't morph, she knows that the team is weaker, and I actually really like that very short but simple but powerful statement of self-confidence. Sara tries to cheer her up by saying, hey, you know, at least Calvin over here got you an amazing anniversary gift, right, Cal? Calvin says, yeah, sure I did, definitely. And Preston pulls him aside for a little bro chat. Preston has put together this 2-piece puzzle and confronts Calvin with the knowledge that he didn't actually get Haley anything, did he? He admits it, that no, he forgot, and Preston starts to channel the genie from Aladdin. Sure, forgetting his anniversary is bad, but lying to her is worse. Tell her the truth! But he says it's too late for that now. Okay. And besides, actually, at the moment, Haley's preoccupied with her Power Star. He can slip out, go get her a present, and just give it to her at dinner. Way to use a life or death good versus evil situation for your own personal gains, Calvin. Preston wishes him luck on this, but Calvin stops him and asks him for his help because he says he doesn't know what Haley would want. I'm sorry, you what? You have been dating this woman for 2 years now. How is it possible that you don't know what she likes? And why would Preston know that any better than you? I do understand that they were friends before the first season of the show began, but I would also presume that you and Haley have been friends that long, and probably longer, since I'd assume that you were friends before you started dating, right? And besides all that, Preston is not a girl. If you really need help on this, shouldn't you ask Sara instead? Sure, Sara might feel hurt for Haley and want to tell her the truth, but I'm pretty sure that you could convince her with the same, look, yes, I know it's bad, I know she'd be hurt, but I can make this right, I just need your help, that you're using on Preston right now. Anyway, Preston agrees to help for Haley's sake, and the two of them go to leave to pick up the present. However, this is when the brothers Romero decide to mess everything up. They decide that they really want to see this present for Haley before she actually gets it, and insist on going with them. As they walk down the street, Brody asks what Calvin actually got her. He tosses this question over to Preston in a panic, since he was going to get Preston's help with what he was going to pick out for her. Preston also panics and just starts looking around wildly, sees a child playing with a toy car, and says that Calvin's getting Haley a car. The brothers are kind of surprised he would spend that much money, and he equally kind of freaks out at the idea, so he backs it down. A carpet, a carpet, a carpet for her room, an anniversary rug. Unfortunately for the Rangers, but fortunately for the plot, Deceptron was hiding nearby and received power from both Calvin and Preston's lies. He attacks the Rangers, and Brody tells them not to let him bolt their stars. So they do a leaping instamorph. And this is something we need to discuss. Full morphing sequences and instamorphs have always been a part of this show, but the decision between one and the other has always existed in the meta outside of the show. The morphing sequence is a visual construct that's just done for the audience's benefit. What I mean to say is, suppose we're standing in Summer Cove right in front of the Ninja Steel Rangers as they morph. We can assume that as soon as they say ninja spin and spin the star, they just transform. We don't see all of that flashy CGI. However, this has brought that debate out of the meta and directly into the show's canon, because this time the Rangers are using an instamorph as a strategic choice. They're doing it to protect their power stars. So that makes me wonder why they would ever use the more elaborate sequence, which exposes their stars, when it's not something that they have to do. We will come back to this later. Brody calls Sara and says they're going to need her help, and she activates a megamorph cycle and then does a running instamorph, this being a better example of that decision being in the show's meta, since this is just kind of saving time in the episode. But honestly, this would have been a really good chance for the show to have given us a solo morph full screen for Sara, but I guess you only get those if you're wearing red or gold. However, I really do like that the 4 male Rangers were facing off against a monster, and their leader called in the only female Ranger that's available because they knew they were going to need her help. I give Ninja Steel a lot of credit for valuing its female team members. As I mentioned that he looked before, this monster really is just generally strong, even without the Bolt Blaster, just beating the Rangers around. As a matter of fact, he demonstrates that hiding their ninja stars did not do them a whole lot of good, as he's able to bolt Levi and Preston anyway, demorphing them and bolting their power stars. However, this is only level 2 Deceptron, 2 bolts from 2 lies. He's still got to power up some more. Now, I was actually encouraged to see that he really was going to just keep beating the Rangers around anyway, but then Sara shows up on the bike, kind of a big hero moment for her, I kind of liked it, blasts the monster with the laser on the bike, then gets off and apologizes to the other Rangers for taking so long, and the monster just leaves off screen without even a visual effect, just a sound effect, and they say, oh, the monster retreated. Was there an editor out sick this week when this was made or something? Back with Mick, he examines the other 2 power stars, but there is still nothing that he can do, besides making a pickle pun that actually did make Preston laugh, even though his star is one of the ones that they can now no longer use. Levi points out how Deceptron said that it was the Ranger's lies that were giving him energy. Mick attempts to make this hackneyed, moralistic plot make some kind of scientific sense by referring to some sort of emotional energy that is expended when lying. I didn't buy it for a freaking second. Haley says that's got to be a trick by the monster anyway, because I mean, none of us have been telling any dirty, dirty lies, right? Well, if you're not going to come clean because she's your girlfriend, you may as well come clean because you're a Power Ranger and you no longer have a choice. Calvin admits to Haley that he lied about forgetting their anniversary and getting her a present. She says she doesn't care about the gift, you silly boy. Only Sara cares when you don't get her presents. And says that things about Calvin, like his being forgetful, constantly late, a complete grease monkey, those are some of the things that she loves about him. No, Haley, those are not things that you love about him. You would love the fact that somebody is constantly late. What you meant to say, and this is a character on a TV show whose lines are being supplied by a writer, so that's something I can say. Don't try that in real life. What you meant to say is that you love Calvin in spite of those things. And I think that's actually the problem here. This line seems to have been very carefully written to avoid Haley even indirectly saying that she loves Calvin. I mean, even over on Power Rangers Hyperforce, which is a deeper and much more mature show, they do still have a Saban Brands representative, and Eddie recently said that he really likes Vesper. But you know what? In spite of all that, it's absolutely undeniable that Zoe and Nico have some real acting chops. And when the episodes that focus on the two of them and their relationship pause to accentuate an aspect of that relationship, it's always incredibly believable and very, very human. Their on-screen chemistry is just fantastic. And then we go right from this episode's really only lone high note right back down into the madness, as Calvin coming clean about his lies causes the bolts on the 3 power stars to vanish. Listen, it does follow its own bizarre kind of logic, really except for Haley's power star though, because at least partially that bolt was powered by one of Monty's lies. But the thing is, this entire concept was absolutely stupid to begin with, so it doesn't really help anyway. And then Mick, even though he's addressing Calvin, all but looks directly into the camera and says, "I'm glad you came clean, Calvin. Honesty is really the best policy." Alright, are you ready? This is what we've been training for. You good to go? Alright, go ahead, hop up there. I'll give you a second. Ladies and gentlemen, the moral of the day. The alarm goes off and Mick says there are buzz cams. Where are they? In the city. Thanks, Mick. Big help. The Rangers run off to battle while Mick says that he's going to make them new Zord stars out of the Super Steel. Once again, I really thought that the decision on making stars was up to the Prism, so you'll be lucky if you don't end up with 5 unicycles and a nice hat, but hey. And by the way, Mick did just call it Super Steel. Great minds think alike. We cut back over to Victor and Monty, but it really didn't bother me as much this time for 2 reasons. Number 1, they were a lesser presence in this episode than they usually are, so that was nice, actually. And number 2, Brody had just said that they needed to find the monster before it found some more liars, and, well, here are some more liars. Basically, Victor messes up several public works projects because he can't see, while Monty keeps lying about his shades, which in turn powers up the Bolt Blaster. The Rangers show up to face Deceptron, and we have yet another case of strange editing in this episode. Just like I mentioned last week was really neat, they once again do a line pan down the line as the Rangers put their stars in their morphers. However, the line pan stops after Brody, who is the 4th Ranger we see. We don't see Levi or Preston. Almost like they weren't going to be in this sequence. And here, once again, is where that choice between the regular morph and the Instamorph comes into play. Remember, the Ninja Steel Rangers now have an in-universe choice on whether to do the regular morphing sequence or to Instamorph and protect their stars, But this time, they decide to go through the full sequence, holding their stars directly out at Deceptron, who is standing right in front of them with a powered-up Bolt Blaster. Of course, he doesn't act on this because we're running out of time here. Again, since this decision is usually involved in the meta of the show, you might find this really nitpicky, but actually, just as I was writing my script for this review, I thought of a far better way that they could have done this. Have 5 of the Rangers confront Deceptron and start doing their full Power Stars Lock-In sequence, pointing the stars right at him. Then, when Deceptron fires his bolts, you can have Levi, who I might remind you, his morpher is a gun, hiding in a tree nearby. You could have him snipe the bolts down. Then Deceptron has wasted his power, and there was a reason for the Rangers to do the whole full morphing sequence. And I thought of that just while I was writing that script. For free. While I was writing something else that wasn't an episode. Deceptron can't believe that the 3 Rangers can morph again. It's almost like he doesn't understand his own powers. But he says that he'll just destroy the Rangers the old-fashioned way. Instead of, just shooting them again, like you did with Levi and Preston, while they were morphed. Because your Bolt Blaster is powered up, that's why you're attacking the Rangers in the first place, I swear. Again, I'm not a professional writer. And I still feel like I think further ahead than the professional writers of this show do. He calls down Basherbots, and incredibly conveniently, the 3 Rangers whose Power Stars had been bolted, Levi, Haley, and Preston, go somewhere else off screen to deal with the Basherbots, while the other 3, Calvin, Sara, and Brody, deal with the Sentai footage. Brody goes Lion Fire mode, and the 2 of them have a nice little slap fight before Deceptron does fire his Bolt Blaster at point-blank range. However, Brody is tanking it, but only at first, before Deceptron adds power to the beam that came from somewhere, and Brody starts to cave. And by the way, I really don't try to claim that I'm as good or better than a professional writer. This isn't an ego thing, but I literally thought of this point while I was filming. Brody can be taking the blast from Deceptron and say something like, "This doesn't even hurt at all." That could have been a lie that would have powered up the Bolt Blaster even more for the increased attack. So, Calvin fires off an elemental water attack that creates a shield, reflecting the Bolt Blast right back at the monster, who freezes up. Having the monster frozen and a prime opportunity to destroy him, Sara decides to destroy his Bolt Blaster, which not only doesn't destroy the monster, but actually unfreezes him. So, nice work there, Sara. The 3 of them destroy him in the next attack anyway. As the other 3 Rangers get back from the land of original footage being too expensive, Deceptron is gigantified. Despite having the Lion Fire Zord, Brody calls Mick and asks him for help. Thankfully, Mick has either finished making the Zord Stars or finished pulling them out of the Prism's throat, take your pick, and Redbot launches them over to the Rangers. By the by, just right here, I've been actually looking for an opportunity to mention this. What is this show's luggage budget? It seems like every other week they pull out some brand new custom-made case for whatever the episode's MacGuffin is. Brody summons the Lion Fire Zord, Levi summons the Bull Rider Zords. Then Brody apparently forgot that this was a Calvin focus episode and asks Preston to summon the Robo Red Zord, which will apparently summon the entire Ninja Steel Megazord, despite the fact that Mick just delivered all of their Zord Stars to them. Listen, I understand that some way one of the Rangers was going to have to spend 2 stars to get it right, but so? The Rangers arrive in their Zords, and everybody except Brody realizes they don't have their Ninja Master Mode stars anymore. However, will they pilot these giant mechs without them? The same way, just without wearing a clunky suit that was only made for merchandising? Oh, no, children, no. Worry not. There's a brand new set of toys that you can beg your parents for. The Rangers find gold stars sitting on those consoles, and spinning them activates Super Ninja Steel mode. No, not even Super Ninja Master Mode, which would have actually made sense. Just show name mode. As a matter of fact, if I can remember to do this on a regular basis, I am committing now that I'm only going to call these suits show name mode. So, show name mode is just a slightly pointier and more golden version of Ninja Master Mode. However, the primary difference, at least that I notice, is the fact that there are these colored lines on the Ranger's visors, which only really serve to make them look even smaller than they already are. As a matter of fact, the lines on Preston's visor are dark blue on black, so they're next to impossible to even see. Calvin gets the Ninja Master Blade for reasons that are not going to make any sense in just a moment. There are times where I find myself nearly desperate to give Ninja Steel credit for anything that I can. So I will say that this week I enjoyed the Zord battle a lot more. It actually had some meat to it. Each of the Megazords got to take a shot, and then they formed the Ninja Ultra Zord, no, not that one. They tried the Ninja Ultra Strike, but it's not quite enough. Brody says they need to use all of their power. So Calvin fires up their final attack, and he is suddenly granted a gigantic lion shotgun, complete with pump action and everything. Now, do not get me wrong. This thing is just as ridiculously awesome as the Ninja Chainsaw Sword. My only issue is, why did we just see Calvin get the Ninja Chainsaw Sword if this thing was coming? Anyway, this thing is either called the Ninja Super Steel Blaster or the Super Ninja Star Blaster, depending on whether you believe Calvin or Sara. They do their Ninja Ultra Zord Blast final attack, and it looks precisely the same as it did last season, so Zordon knows what the shotgun did to help, but it works, and kaboom! We don't get a villain wrap-up this week, and the Rangers wrap-up actually ties right into Victor and Monty's. Calvin and Haley go to the school snack bar because, honest to goodness, I don't think Summer Cove High has a legitimate cafeteria, and they get their annual traditional meal, all 2 years of their relationship. A mushroom, pineapple, pepperoni pizza with extra sauce. I think this is the dinner they were referring to, but they are still at school. So this is very clearly lunch, unless they're planning to eat it later. And before all the comments start rolling in, can all of you folks that are so dead set against the idea of pineapple going on pizza honestly just learn to live and let live? Seriously, in all my life, I don't think I've ever seen a situation with food where a set of people that didn't like a certain kind of food were so dead set against it even existing. Guess what, heroes? I like pineapple on pizza. It's called a Hawaiian with ham. It's not a brand new thing. It's been around friggin' forever. If you do not like pineapples on pizza, that's 100% okay with me. I don't like mushrooms on pizza. You don't see me saying that mushrooms don't go on pizza, that it's an affront to God or an abomination or the worst thing ever. To each their own. Now, I'm sorry to go on a 2-paragraph rant about pizza in a Power Rangers episode review. It's just that this is really the first time Power Rangers has brought up the issue of pineapple on pizza since I've been reviewing it. I was happy that they're actually on my side about it, and I've already seen comments of people, I will say, upset, ironically, about it. So, I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring. Anyway, as they wait for the pizza to be made, Calvin says that he still feels really bad about forgetting their anniversary, so he made Haley a gift. Did he make her like a nice little statue, maybe like of her, made out of car parts, you know, really clever and tying into his character? No, that would make a little too much sense. He made her a calendar, although a calendar. It has pictures of the two of them as well as Cody. Designing something at home and then having Snapfish print it counts as homemade, right? Though I guess Summer Cove must have that Amazon drone delivery, seeing as this is the same day. I'm just not buying that he made this at home. He made 2 copies, one for each of them, and their anniversary is circled so he won't forget it next year. And the calendar says September, and that leads to something I need to bring up from the last episode. Yes, when I said that check that Victor and Monty were donating to the school said January 21st, It was pointed out by a number of you that that was not in fact a 1, but in fact the world's weakest 9. I took another look at it, and it is indeed a 9, but you know what? I am still counting it as a mistake, because when you put a date on screen, that needs to be intentional, and you need to make it crystal clear what date that actually is, because otherwise, nitpickers like me are going to think it was a mistake. But let's go from something that I thought was a mistake to something that I definitely know was one. Let's take a closer look at this calendar, shall we? Again, Calvin shows Haley that he has their anniversary date circled on the calendar so he won't forget it next year. The more I looked at this calendar, the more I noticed was wrong with it, and the more my brain started to bleed. It started with me noticing that the date that was circled, which was theoretically the date of the episode, the date of their anniversary, was September 24th, which on that calendar was a Friday. It just so happens, due to that confusion in the last episode, that I looked up the date, September 21st, 2018, and realized that it would be a Friday, which itself was actually an error because you do not start a school year on a Friday. I immediately realized that September 21st and September 24th could not both be Fridays. Okay, so the calendar obviously would be for September 2019, the next year. You're reminding Calvin of the anniversary. He can't remember it this year. He's got to remember it next year, right? Days on a calendar only shift by 1 year to year, and the 21st and the 24th are more than a single day apart. So I decided to use the first day of the month as a reference. September 1st, 2019 is a Sunday. But according to this calendar, September 1st, 2019 is a Wednesday. I thought they might have just missed it by a month, intended it to be August, but then it ended up changing to September and they just didn't change the days. So I looked into it, and indeed, August 2019 does start on a Wednesday. But wait, I said to myself, August has 31 days, September only has 30. Does this calendar have 31 days? No. Does it have 30 days? No, this calendar has 28 days on it. What in Zordon's name is up with this calendar? Was Linkara right? Did they end up adding like 300 or 400 days to a standard year, and so some months had to be shortened to make things average out? Alright, we are almost at the end of the episode, so I'll just circle back to this later. The actual comedy part of this wrap-up is just your classic slapstick. Calvin picks up the pizza, turns around, and the still be-sunglassed Victor walks directly into him, getting the pizza all over his shirt. Because he can't see. He finally realizes that he can't see when he calls Calvin Brody, but asks, hey, do I still at least look cool? Calvin has learned the moral of the day, especially after a gentle reminder from Haley, so he says, no, sorry, Victor, you don't look cool, you look stupid. Victor realizes that he's been wearing those sunglasses out in the hot sun all day for nothing, and takes them off to reveal sort of a tan line on his face in the shape of the sunglasses. 1 and 2 for me and you, so let's throw stars, do-do-do-do-do. Episode 2, Moment of Truth. Prose, Haven are as great on screen as ever. Deceptron had a lot of potential, and power to the girls / Ultrazord power. Cons, shackling the moral of the day to the monster plot, bad editing and on-screen mistakes, and more in-your-face commercialism. Some people liked this episode better than the first one. I am not some people. Moment of Truth gets 2 stars out of 5. I feel like I already waxed on about this during the plot summary, so I'm going to try to keep this short, but yeah, #Haven. The two of them are just so incredible on screen together that I can almost kind of forget about the fact that this show treats them as one character instead of 2. The two of them are obviously very cute together, but they also just feel very real when they're talking about their feelings and their emotions. However, we just can't let them kiss on the lips or say that they love each other, huh? Deceptron had the potential of being a really cool monster. His look was physically imposing. His power was damaging to the Rangers, even taking some of them out of the fight entirely. And without that power, he still kicked the Rangers around the battlefield. This could have been the best monster that we got in these 2 seasons. Why wasn't he? We'll get to that. I always make a really concerted effort to try to find 3 pros and 3 cons for every episode, regardless of the score I end up giving it. But after the first 2 pros this time, I had 2 things that didn't seem big enough to be pros on their own. So I'm just going to go ahead and mention them together, kind of half a pro each. I really liked how the girls were treated in this episode. Even that just single line of Haley's self-confidence about knowing that the team is weaker without her. And also Sara having that big hero moment on the bike and her being called into battle and it being demonstrated that she was needed. And I always just love seeing an Ultra Zord on the screen, even if its finisher is this kind of upside down shot of it that's a little literally head tilting. To the point that I'm almost about ready to go ahead and just buy the Lionfire Fortress Sword. I hear it's come down to like $50. I'm thinking about jumping on that. Okay, now we can talk about why Deceptron wasn't the best monster we've gotten on Ninja Steel and Super Ninja Steel, though you can probably already guess. It's the fact that they shackled his powers to this episode's moral of the day like the proverbial ball and chain. I just thought it would have been really, really cool if the whole don't tell lies thing was just the moral of the day subplot, and let's say that Deceptron's bolts were powered by something else, like, say, sunlight, especially since you had the whole Victor and Monty sunglasses subplot. So now Deceptron needs to stay near really sunny parts of the town, which is where Victor and Monty would be, in order to charge his bolts back up. Then the Rangers figure out that turning off all the lights removes the bolts. Maybe somebody accidentally shuts off the lights or there's a power outage or something, and they're like, oh, that ended up being way too easy. And then they lure Deceptron over to the shadier part of town underneath the Stady Arena. Instead, it feels like we have a Season 2 episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers where Lord Zed created a monster after hearing a Ranger lie, even with that kind of naming quirk, and the Rangers have to defeat it with the power of truth. I feel the need to say this because it feels like every time I criticize the moral of the day, at least one person in the comments responds with this. I am fine with episodes having morals. I understand that Power Rangers is a kids show, and kids shows are going to try to teach life lessons. But there are ways to do it subtly. You can weave it into the story carefully. It doesn't have to be the end-all be-all of the entire story, with Mick staring straight into the camera, and straight into your soul, and telling you not to tell lies, and to be a good little boy and girl. And then maybe Mommy and Daddy will buy you that new Megazord toy if you're a good child and don't cause them problems. Sorry. And then we just had those weird editing mistakes and other little strange happenings in the episode that, no sarcasm here, absolutely serious, make me wonder if this episode needed reshoots at the last minute. The Rangers' morphers just appear, the monster just disappears, a line pan of 6 Rangers stops after 4 of them, 3 of the Rangers go fight Basherbots and vanish off screen for an entire monster fight, and then of course, that calendar. Ninja Steel has been consistently bad for 24 episodes now. This is the first one that I would call sloppy.
They just didn't care.
And yes, show name mode. Another thing I do realize about Power Rangers is that it is a 24-minute toy commercial. But once again, you can be subtle about that. There's absolutely no reason in the story that the Rangers even need any sort of special cockpit mode, let alone needing a different one from last season. Absolutely nothing changes in the Zord footage, and yes, I tried not to mention it until now, but I have to mention it here. Calvin did, once again, drop that line that I hate more in this show than any other line. This new mode feels powerful. I would just rather that my understanding of this show as a toy commercial be something that exists in the back of my mind, not in the front of it. You know, looking through comments, other review videos, message boards, etc., I've already seen that people are surprisingly divided on this episode. At least to me, it's getting a surprising amount of praise as at least a pretty decent episode. Obviously, I didn't see it that way. But I think I'm starting to understand why, and it's actually something I alluded to earlier. This really did feel like an old episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. All it was missing was Odious actually choosing to create this monster because she heard a ranger lie. But we have a monster that's directly related to the moral of the day. Solving the moral of the day also solves the monster. Then we have a little wrap-up of the moral of the day at the end to make sure we understand before ending the episode on some Bulk and Skull, Victor and Monty slapstick comedy. Here's the thing though, it's not the 1990s anymore. TV has changed and even children's programming has matured. We can now have far more complex stories that are still intended for and appropriate for children. This statement hits a lot of people wrong and it can be kind of controversial in this fandom, but I still feel this way and I know I'm not the only one. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers has not aged well. It is, quite honestly, a little hard to watch today, in the same way that the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation is a little painful to watch. The show has gotten better. Or maybe I should say the show had gotten better. We are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That does not mean that we have to relive it. Well, we are 2 episodes in, and thus far Super Ninja Steel has 4.5 out of a possible 10 stars. 45%. That sounds about right if you think about it. Let's see if it can improve its average by taking a look at the 3rd episode of Super Ninja Steel, Tough Love. Levi tries to change himself to impress a mysterious street performer. Hey, moral of the day graphic? Make sure you don't go too far, okay? That's going to do it for another Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel episode review. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button down below. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of this episode. Like I said, people have been kind of divided on it. Did you like this one? Did you think it was average, like a lot of people are saying? Or like me, were you really not all that fond of it? Make sure to subscribe to the channel to see all my videos, and make sure you ring that bell, get your notifications set up, so that you can make sure you are notified of whenever I post brand new videos, just like this Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel episode review. And if you really liked my review, and you'd like to toss me even the smallest bit of financial support, you can head over to digitaltipjar.com/orangerangervid, toss even the smallest amount of pennies that it will allow, I don't know what amount that is actually, into that digital tip jar. I am grateful for anything that lands inside. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you. Victor's trying on sunglasses to find and try a. I do appreciate and understand that there are some pans. That's where I screwed that up. Pans. Visually describing all the action on the screen. Visually describing. However, I do think that we can all agree that Power Rangers is a television show created for a visual medium. Mick can't get the bolt off because of magic. Who would love the fact that someone is constantly late? Even on Power Rangers Hyperforce, which is a much more deeper and more mature show, that as Calvin telling the truth about his... So Lord knows. Lord. They do their look at the camera, Sean. Episode 2, Moment of Truth. Pros, Haven are on great... Excuse me again. And then we just had... Levi tries... Oh yeah, I do that as a